Deploy targeting sweeps. There's nothing responding because there's nothing left to respond. General Thrisk Varnak's orders cut through the comms array aboard the churn of obedience, his flagship drifting into the orbital shade of Saturn's rings. The Drask bridge crew obeyed without question. The last data scan showed Earth's outposts dead, not compromised, absent. Power grids cold, no pings, no atmospheric anomalies, all sectors rendered mute. The Drask Dominion's warpath had swallowed larger civilizations in fewer cycles. Earth wasn't a target, it was a formality. A cleanup task for younger officers to earn merit ribbons. Varnak had no interest in medals. He wanted documentation, unbroken footage of Earth's last hours, to educate future sectors on the cost of non-compliance. The command deck pulsed with subsurface indicators. Crewman Halrox initiated the zone sweep protocols, pale gold navigation glyphs blooming across the angular interface built into the armored floor. Atmospheric decay patterns hold, he muttered. No shield distortions, no magnetic reflux fields, no heat signatures. And why is your hand trembling? Varnak stepped forward, each movement crisp, spine never shifting. He stared at the visual feed projecting across the forward optics curve. Mars's outpost grid looked like a fossilized ribcage. Everything where it should have been, except the people. There's no logical schema for this, General, Halrox admitted, not daring to lift his gaze. Logic doesn't react. It corrects. Launch scouts into orbit. I want occupancy records verified against planetary scans. No emotion, no speculation, just hard relays. Fleet Wyber localized. Varnak's eyes narrowed as he studied Earth's trajectory path, uncanny and unnerving. Fleetwad. I want each commander to feel this unease for themselves. The outer squadrons of the Dominion's Third Armada began fanning out, drag lines splitting the void as cruisers initiated staggered arc-pitter sweeps. Not a single defensive drone responded. Space debris flickered, disorganized and uncharacteristic. Artificial, yes, but displaced, rearranged, as if someone had tried to mimic chaos without understanding it. High above Neptune's frozen corona, Commander Ervac deployed 3 survey drones toward a Terran science relay platform. The drones returned visuals within minutes. Unmanned decks, lab doors welded open, stale water drifting through observation bays. No signs of struggle. Just decay without origin. I have a question, Ervac muttered on the command line, his clawed fingers dragging across his skull's brow. Why are there boots in every corridor, but no bodies? No one answered. On the Varakan Lance, Admiral Dreth noted a similar pattern. Sir, biotraces are inverted. Organic particles show dates older than the facility's construction. Fabricated, Varnak responded from the primary uplink. Perhaps. Or deliberately falsified to suggest abandonment before habitation even occurred. Which is impossible. Exactly, sir. Varnak didn't blink. Expand data mining, scan for gravitational pocket anomalies near the asteroid belt. If Earth wants to play with perception, we'll play deeper. Crewman Halrox broke protocol, stepping forward. General, we just intercepted a repeating broadcast string near Titan's lower moon. It's an open message, ping, unencrypted. Play it. The audio stuttered, then stabilized. A human voice, aged, but firm. You're looking for survivors. There are none. We aren't lost. We're watching. Varnak's mandibles clicked once. Timestamp the source. No timestamp, Halrox whispered. No origin either. Just spatial echo. Like it was recorded and stitched into the vacuum. Then where's the transmitter? We can't locate one. The message seems to move with the fleet. Varnak turned toward the display's edge, where Earth rotated slowly in the backdrop, indifferent and dim. His gaze drifted across the Terran moon. Their mining structures remained low profile but intact. No energy bleed, no signal emissions, not even basic coolant discharge. But why leave infrastructure untouched? Do you understand what's wrong with this picture? Varnak finally asked. Admiral Dreth responded. Too clean. They didn't just abandon, they erased themselves with discipline. And discipline without defense is strategy, not surrender. The Drask Dominion had never feared strategy. Their doctrine depended on brute assertion, tactical overload. Every fleet was taught the same creed: eliminate decision windows through scale. Yet here, decision was being given back to them. Too often, too freely. It created pressure, not from force, from choice, the most dangerous kind. A shriek ripped through one of the auxiliary comm channels. Ship Grenache Telek, reporting mass malfunction in its internal environmental controls. Oxygen levels recalibrated themselves mid-rotation. Artificial gravity rotated 30 degrees before resetting. Crew had begun reporting auditory hallucinations, non-existent alarms, overlapping directives. Human voices whispering wrong coordinates into nav maps. No ship touched them. No human vessel was detected. Disable internal communications on Talek, Varnak barked. Purge its system stack and isolate its fleet relay. What, General? It's compromised. Or compromised itself. Either is irrelevant. He closed the channel and lowered his voice to command only. This is a psychological breach, not a battle. We are not confronting a species. We're navigating a test chamber. Down on Earth, nothing stirred. But in orbit, Dominion vessels began deploying surveillance drones across known convoys. The results were mathematically impossible. Every single Terran buoy was functional. Every single one was broadcasting an identical sub-ping every 12 minutes. It wasn't a data stream. It wasn't encrypted. It was a placeholder. Something to ensure the Dominion wasted processing cycles trying to decode nothing. A shadow flickered across the far end of Saturn's ring bank. Track that object, Varnak demanded. Replay an 8-frame sequence. They rotated through the imaging buffer. The shape appeared again. A cylinder. Matte tech, no thrust trails. Is that a drone? No, sir. Escape pod? No markings, no power, no response. The object slowly rotated on its axis. A faint red line was etched along its curved surface. Then the camera caught the inscription. A single word burned across its side in raw engraved Terran script. He unwanted. Varnak did not speak for 30 full seconds. Then he issued his first true war order. All scout fleets, move inward. I want direct scans of Earth's surface. If they're beneath the crust, we drag them out. No more delays. Admiral Dreth nodded. We begin orbital descent at once. Varnak narrowed his gaze. Begin the descent, yes. But be very clear, Admiral, we're not attacking a planet anymore. We're wandering through its wake. Hold the feed. Sector 12's drone footage is looped. That mining site was leveled 2 years ago. Director Halvik's Breen's voice cut through the makeshift command chamber like a serrated edge. His hand hovered over the embedded surface interface, one finger twitching as a distorted thermal image refreshed on the scratched heads-up display. There were no survivors in the footage. That much was real. What wasn't real was the timestamp. Someone had rewritten the moment, injected false continuity. But it wasn't the Drask. It was Earth. In the underchamber 3 levels below, Varric Thorn stood alone, staring at a dim blueprint projected against reinforced concrete. Sectors 7 through 15, tagged with black vectors, not red. Black meant fabricated losses. Territories erased on paper but not in reality. Places Earth had never abandoned. Only hidden. His breath condensed briefly against the frigid recycled air as he leaned in closer. The blueprint flickered. Names of cities removed. Infrastructure redacted. Biotag traces of civilians scrubbed from orbital records. Thorn spoke quietly, as if the concrete could betray him. False extinction protocols, 23 of them. We made our own graveyard. Footsteps approached. Doran Quell, eyes sunken, steps measured, stopped near the threshold. The Dominion scouts started sweeping the belt. They'll find nothing, because that's what they're meant to find. Thorn turned without greeting. His face bore the kind of angular tension that only came from survival without validation. The kind of man who'd watched his work dismissed, until it was all Earth had left. "You still think they believe we're gone?" Thorn asked. "They believe we collapsed," Quell corrected, tapping a glyph on his wrist interface, "which is far more useful than death. Collapse means our data's unguarded. It invites them to dig. And we've buried enough hooks in the ground to bleed every sensor they send." Thorn didn't smile. He rarely did. Instead, he walked past Quell, past a cracked floor tile marked with Sector 9's detonation countdown. This building had once housed Earth's Atmospheric Research Division. Now it was a ghost shell, abandoned above, repurposed below. 3 days ago, Dominion long-range probes passed over it and reported only irradiated dust. What they saw was not a lie. It was a tailored truth, sculpted with just enough realism to avoid suspicion. "Remind me," Thorn said, "what's the running count of collapsed outposts?" 71. "Wrong," he said sharply. "It's 74. You missed Solace Spire, Canyon Fold, and the Tarsus Relay." Quell blinked. Those weren't confirmed deploy zones. They didn't need to be. Dominion tracking patterns looped across them twice. If they record the third pass and see the same anomaly, they'll launch a correctional drop fleet. And if they don't, then we lose control of where they walk next. Thorn opened a storage module with a hiss and retrieved a cracked visor. Its lens was fractured from the left, impact trauma from the first skirmish at Vega Drift. He wiped off the dried crust near the breach point and held it up to the light. The crack had spread in 5 directions like a neural web. He stared through it. "Does it still smell like scorched polyarmor?" Quell asked. "No. Smells like shame." Thorn placed the visor on the command desk. "We lost everything at Vega Drift, including the part of ourselves that thought negotiation was still viable. Did they ever even respond to the peace envoy?" Quell asked, a bitter undertone rising. "He didn't respond," Thorn muttered. "They vivisected it and left the broadcast open for 3 days. A long pause sat between them before Thorn continued. They didn't want surrender, they wanted symbolism. Quell stepped forward and activated a console panel embedded beneath the desk's right edge. A rotating schematic unfolded, showing the Hollow Doctrine's flowchart. It wasn't sleek. It wasn't elegant. It was raw, built on layers of redundancy and misinformation. Faked disaster reports, scrambled comm relays, collapsed colony feeds set to relay non-looping ghost pings every 3rd cycle. It worked because it was flawed. Real collapse was never clean. Thorn pointed at the dead zone labeled Echelon Void. "This is next. The Dominion will hit that with a full scan. I want the nanodust saturated in the abandoned water caches. Doses below neural fatality, but high enough to provoke hallucinated coordination breakdown." Quell tilted his head. "You're certain it won't trigger permanent damage?" "I'm not after damage. I'm after reaction. Let their field medics argue whether their own men are lying. Let their captains mistrust every cough." He walked to the console again. Collapse isn't just tactical. It's emotional engineering. Above them, Dominion vessels orbited unchallenged, documenting what they assumed were Earth's last flickers of infrastructure. Their ships logged records of crumbling outposts, failed reactors, and low-perennity comm signatures intentionally inserted into data flows. None of them knew Earth's full communication lattice had gone dark because it wanted to, not because it failed. Halvix Breen's voice crackled through the lower comm array. "Thorn, their northern fleet just triggered our echo relay on the sun-facing side of Luna." "Reaction?" "By mirrored scan depth and accelerated forward. They think we left behind raw atmospheric data. They'll chase the mirage." Thorn nodded. "Let it lead them into the ion canyons. When they start dissecting the terrain, I want the bio-simulation crates to rupture on timer. They'll think we experimented on ourselves." Quell furrowed his brow. "That's going to push them into combat posture." Thorn's tone didn't change. "Exactly." He walked past the fractured visor again, this time not looking at it. His pace was deliberate now, the edge returning to his gait. A man no longer driven by theory. A man building a world of controlled decay. Behind him, the console beeped once, Another Dominion scout had gone dark, not from destruction, but confusion. Its black box returned only one message. Echo target shifted phase, unable to reinitialize objective. Quell watched the feed blink out. They'll start suspecting a pattern soon. Not if every mistake feels like their own. Thorne approached the vault door, leading into Operations Layer 7. You've preloaded the misalignment injectors? Yes. And the Terra audio samples? From sites we never built. Thorne keyed the door open. Cold air rolled outward, tinged with copper from the fluid cooling tanks lining the walls. Inside sat the memory bank. 20 years of fabricated records rigged to upload into any system that tried to parse planetary consistency. Above them, the enemy had no idea they were mining fiction. Thorne reached for the activation panel. Begin synchronizing the next 3 sectors. We don't erase Earth. He pressed his hand against the biometric seal. We convinced them Earth was never here. Stay in formation. If one of you wanders again, I will burn you down myself. Commander Varric Graal's guttural warning echoed across the shattered corridor, punctuated by the snap of his heel as he advanced over debris that didn't belong there. His Squad 7 Drask assault troopers, each outfitted in breach armor and neural-linked visors, moved in staggered sync through the abandoned Martian outpost, labeled Beta 6. To Graal's right, a child's tricycle lay rusting next to a cracked vending unit. Its wheel still turned, not from wind, there was none, but from some residual force that refused to decay. A looping melody played from a recessed speaker above them. A nursery rhyme in a language only one of the squad members spoke, and he hadn't spoken since entering. The data core is beneath the reactor shaft, said Technician Dronix, checking his heads-up display. We extract and purge. No hesitation, Graal snapped. If you see movement, terminate it, no warnings. The air in the complex bit into their filtration vents. Not through temperature, but through inconsistency. Every few meters, the climate control shifted. Muggy, dry, damp, then sterile. Not programmed chaos, engineered confusion. Even their boots echoed differently in each chamber. Skarn, eyes left. Graal barked as they passed a long, glass-walled observation room. Inside, desks sat neatly aligned, each occupied by a human-shaped figure sculpted from compressed ash. One had a broken pen embedded in where the hand should have been. Another faced the wall. A third wore a child's backpack. Trooper Skarn twitched. These aren't real bodies. Maybe were never meant to be, muttered Dronix, narrowing his visor range. Thermal scans reading zeros across the board. No heat, no decay, no origin markers. One of the doors hissed open without input. The room beyond was painted floor to ceiling with bright murals. Handprints, cartoon animals, stars, and suns that grinned with too many teeth. In the center sat a faux leather chair turned away from them. The chair creaked slightly, as if it had just shifted weight. Don't engage the room, Graal said flatly. But it's not. They moved on. Their objective, a sub-level access hatch, rested below a stairwell flanked by 2 vending machines, both blinking nonsensical options: memory, sky, mother. They ignored the prompts and descended. The air changed again. This time it carried the scent of burnt starch mixed with solvent. Not metallic, something closer to decaying adhesives. Trooper Halvek paused, nostrils flaring beneath his filtration mask. His claws clenched involuntarily. I'm hearing whispers, he muttered. Our comms aren't live. They're not in the channel, said another. No. They're in the vents. Graal froze. His visor flickered for a moment, then resolved into focus. Your helmets are sealed. If you're hearing anything, it's not through your ears. Halvek began shaking his head violently, claws scratching at the side of his helmet. They're repeating my name. Graal didn't hesitate. He fired a kinetic round into Halvek's faceplate. The force cracked the visor, flooding the squad's frequency with a burst of static. Halvek dropped, convulsing. Dronix scanned his vitals. He's alive, but his neural path's been overridden. Something triggered hallucination algorithms through. Grawl cut him off. We move. Anyone else breaks pattern, I finish them. This place doesn't kill us directly, it invites the kill. They reached the reactor shaft. The core looked intact, fully powered, untouched. Yet the interface console showed a last user entry dated 40 minutes ago. This base is tagged abandoned for 18 months, Dronix said. There shouldn't be anything here. Grawl stepped to the console. His visor flared red. Access log matches Earth protocol. User ID T. Varric. He stared at the name. Thorn. The door behind them slammed shut. A projection flickered onto the wall, not a screen, just an overlay mapped onto the structure itself. A classroom. Children seated. No sound. Their heads slowly turned toward the squad. Trooper Yaron screamed and fired at the wall. The projection didn't react, but his pulse spiked. His armor's internal pressure valves misfired, ejecting coolant onto the floor. He collapsed mid-fire. The growl didn't even look. They've turned the entire base into a theater. Dronix crouched, analyzing the floor pattern. They seeded this place with nanodust. It's embedded in the air system. Low-quantity psychoactives designed to interact with Drask neural layering. Growl's voice lowered. People studied us. The proximity sensor pinged. Footsteps. Human. Growl raised his weapon. A man stepped into view, unarmed. He wore an old Earth utility jacket. His face was blurred, intentionally distorted. The visor couldn't focus. The man held up a sign. You should have brought more logic. Grawl opened fire. The rounds passed through the figure. The walls shifted again, this time showing a hospital hallway. Every door had his name on it. Every patient was him. Trooper Rix turned and ran. He didn't make it 10 steps before the ceiling dropped a blast door, crushing his midsection and cutting off his signal. Blood sprayed across the console. Not his. Dronix was already twitching on the floor, spasming from a neural backlash. Growl fired into the ceiling. No effect. He looked at his remaining trooper. No sign of them. No sign of us either. I can't feel my legs. You're walking. Grawl activated a manual override. He tore the side panel from the wall and hardwired into the base's central command. No data, just one repeating entry. Beta 6. Hallucination testbed. Complete. Extraction unnecessary. He stared at it, understanding too late. His remaining trooper screamed and slammed his own helmet into the wall until his skull fractured. The screams didn't end. Even as the body fell, the screams echoed. Grawl was alone. He grabbed his short blade and sliced a line across his palm. The pain was sharp, focused. Real. He keyed a message into his wrist interface. Beta 6 compromised. Subjective reality breach. No survivors. Before he could transmit, the console shut itself off. From above, footsteps approached. Measured. Human. Identify. Grail growled. Blade ready. The lights flickered. A child's voice responded. We already did. Dell refueled at node 37B. That's where we cut their spine. Sergeant Marnvekar crouched inside a radiation-shielded shipping container drifting beside a derelict ore hauler in the asteroid belt. The hull around him groaned as micrometeorites rattled off its weathered panels. His voice, low and dry, echoed through his squad's internal comms. No helmet lights, no noise protocols broken. They were embedded. Not hiding, hunting. Across the fragmented screen in his wrist cradle, 10 supply nodes blinked. Each bore a Dominion crest. Each pulsed green. Operational, fully stocked, monitored by short-range scouts too arrogant to encrypt proximity sweeps. We intercept at their weakest point, he continued. The fuel distribution hub at Rock 6 runs transfer loops every 6 hours. If we reroute those loops through the phantom cache we've hardwired into the belt, their entire fleet mapping grid flips inside out. Corporal Tyene Rask adjusted the capacitor strapped to his chest. Won't that make our spoof lines traceable? Bakar answered without hesitation. Only if they survived long enough to compare charts. Below their feet, the fuel destabilizer modules pulsed with timed heat diffusers. They didn't ignite. They siphoned, drawing fusion cells into thermoelectric overload. The ignition wouldn't be visible. It would mimic solar proximity decay. A statistical anomaly in the logs, nothing more. Squad Alpha didn't fire shots. They deleted supply lines by subtraction. The countdown reached phase red. Vaker tapped the magnetic seal. The crate released, drifting slowly toward the docking hub affixed to the Dominion freighter or Vaxis Glade. The container appeared civilian, scarred by prior cargo runs, its Earth serials intentionally scuffed. Dominion logs would read it as a rogue salvage drop, expendable, harmless. Target drift path is clean, muttered Rask, eyes fixed on his heads-up overlay. Impact in 5. The moment the crate breached the intake funnel, 3 components activated. A Timedale magnetic surge, a biofeedback pinger, and a looped comm signal replicating the Dominion fleet's own emergency beacon. To the receiving ship, it would look like a high-priority core bundle from a damaged support vessel. By the time someone opened it, half the midline fueling nodes would read as overfilled. But no fuel would remain. They'll blame theft, Rask whispered. They'll blame incompetence, Vecker corrected. Which is worse? Above them, the wreckage of Node 22D drifted sideways after a deliberate nudge from drone thrusters. The shift knocked 3 tethered Dominion scouts out of alignment. 2 collided. 1 sent a distress ping to command, but the ping was received by Earth. Agent Doran Quell, monitoring from Substation 9, replicated the distress pattern, multiplied it across 17 locations, and rebroadcast it with scrambled timestamps. Now Dominion fleet leaders saw multiple fire alerts, none of them in the same place twice. Inside the Dominion command center at Halleck Station, Admiral Cross Venn barked at subcommanders flicking through corrupted logs. Fuel counts have increased in 3 sectors. Fuel counts have increased in 3 sectors, dropped in 4, and 4 ships are reporting internal gauge resets. Angel sign again uncertain. It might be an internal virus, possibly human malware embedded during salvage ops. Crosven backhanded him. Humans don't plant code, they crash ships. Not anymore, came the murmur. Back in the belt, another container detached. This one bore no identifiers. It didn't need to. Inside were burner tablets, stacked in rows, each triggered on ambient Dominion signal strength. Once exposed to the right comm frequency, they would broadcast fake fleet positions based on outdated mapping archives Earth had leaked a year earlier. Now, as Dominion ships searched for resupply, they'd be rerouted to locations already stripped and booby-trapped. They'll kill each other before they find us, said Rask, watching the overlays flicker. Vikar's reply was cold. They already are. On the Dominion warship Grathor's Coil, 2 fuel officers came to blows after one accused the other of falsifying a drain report. Security bots attempted to intervene, but the system flagged both as enemies due to a false encryption signature. Courtesy of Thorne's misalignment injectors. The bots opened fire. 3 minutes later, the ship drifted dark, its core offline. Confirmed, Vakar said as data streamed in. That's 4 nodes neutralized without contact. Corporal Rask rechecked his boarding kit. Next vector? Gas Hub 9L, they just rerouted patrols to compensate. They'll reach it in 6 minutes. Too fast for us to get there. Not if they believe it's already occupied. He uploaded an AI-generated subroutine designed to mimic Dominion fleet chatter. 3 overlapping signals now projected Dominion fleet captains arguing over control of Hub 9L. All fake. Each using voice fragments recorded during early Dominion broadcasts. Each slightly wrong. Just enough for suspicion, never enough for proof. Vaker leaned forward, adjusting his visor. They'll detect inconsistencies, but too late. Suddenly, one of the pulse tags blinked red, an unexpected reaction. Rask frowned. That's not our trigger. No, Vakar muttered. It's Dominion fallback, they're scrubbing the network. Do we abort? We escalate. He keyed in the code for the fallback tier. Pathway, Echo 5. 4 derelict ships, abandoned long ago. powered up. They didn't move. They broadcast position pings indicating Earth fleets advancing from opposite ends of the belt. Every Dominion warship received the message. 3 commanders ordered fallback, 2 ignored it. 1 opened fire on an ally. Internal friendly fire confirmed, Rask said, scanning the feed. Let them rot in their own confusion, Vicar replied, packing the last disruptor into the launcher. We've made the battlefield irrelevant. A final console ping lit up. Secondary crates activated at Rock 6. Fuel readings inverted. Their tankers will overdraw and rupture containment. The car stared at the readout. It won't kill them. No. It'll make them think they're dying. Pull tighter. I want his spine to feel every heartbeat. Varric Thorn stood behind the containment pane, arms folded as Core Taldic writhed against the restraints. The neural feedback collar constricted in measured pulses, calibrated to spike just before unconsciousness without crossing the line. Each contraction turned breath into labor, not punishment. Reminder. He's not broken yet, said Quell, monitoring readings from a tethered tablet. Thorn's eyes remained fixed on Taldic. He doesn't need to break. He just needs to believe he switched sides. The interrogation room was stripped of comfort. No chairs, no warmth, no symbols of Earth, only reflective walls and the occasional hiss of coolant lines in the overhead conduit. Talik's frame, taller than most of his species but hunched now, quivered from the aftershock of the last round of memory splices. Small shocks, timed with trigger phrases, had been enough to suppress basic instincts and stir synthetic doubt. Thorn tapped a control node. A segment of Taldec's combat history scrolled across the left wall. Skirmish record, tribunal assignments, 5 cleared summary executions. Trusted, predictable, loyal, and now, useful. Quell adjusted the vocal pitch enhancer. Ready. Feed him the chart, Thorn ordered. On the heads-up display inside the chamber, a mission layout appeared. A Terran, hidden convoy route, stretching across the LSR cluster. Obvious, unencrypted, timed for minimal defense. The type of data a panicked defector might offer as leverage for mercy. Taldec's eyes twitched toward it. We caught this from a splinter group, Quell said, his voice altered through the modulator. They were planning fallback from one of our labs. You don't want them to escape. Taldec coughed once, mucus trailing from his lower jawline. Why, share it with me? Thorn stepped forward, face obscured by the two-way pane. Because you already betrayed them. This makes you useful. Dalek spat toward the floor, but there was no anger in the motion, only calculation. The collar buzzed once. His knees buckled. You'll send me alone? No. We'll leak the route through channels your command still watches. You'll be traced, you'll be believed. And they'll move to intercept what doesn't exist. Taldic rasped out a laugh. You don't even know who I was. I do, Thorn replied. You were a projection of their order, and now you're the symptom of their collapse. Within the hour, Taldic was on board a pre-scrapped freighter. Its nav logs were falsified by Quell to reflect slow-moving human vessels coordinating via analog channels. Outdated systems. Vulnerable. An easy ambush. The ship was rigged to eject data fragments into interceptable channels, just enough to catch Dominion attention. Thorn ensured every fragment used phrases Dominion strategists would recognize as coded incompetence. Delayed command, reallocated escorts, irregular supply handoffs. Triggers that screamed opportunity. As the freighter crossed into the asteroid-strewn Helion wreck field, Dominion scouts pinged it on long-range scans. General Nurnek's Locke of the 6th Vanguard Division reviewed the findings aboard his command deck. Human freighter, running cold, routing through asteroid choke point, no escort signatures, his comms officer relayed. Pulled her lineage, where'd we get this? Intercepted from defector Taldec's comms drop. Fleet intelligence verified the signal path. Nurnex grunted. They're smuggling assets out the side door, typical. Orders? Full interdiction, deploy siege vessels with atmospheric thrusters. They'll think we're slow to chase. I want it turned into slag. By the time the Dominion squad reached Helion Wreckfield, it was too late. The asteroids shifted, gently at first, then in staggered formations. Unmarked satellites within the debris web activated, not with weapons, but mass realignment beacons. The rocks didn't explode, they rotated, one after another, redirecting kinetic force across the belt. The Dominion vessels didn't collide. They were boxed in. The freighter vanished, its signature absorbed by a decoy vessel tagged Clay Echo. What remained were 6 Dominion cruisers, unable to maneuver, trapped by automated debris fields they couldn't predict. Every scan now fed back garbage coordinates, gravity patterns scrambled, sub-nav relays broadcasted false escape routes, each leading into thicker asteroid concentrations. One cruiser opened fire at random. The debris reacted, scattering into its engine lattice. Ignition failed. Reactor overdraw cascaded. Chain reaction. Thorne watched the feed from Earth's tactical chamber, arms folded. Helion lockdown complete, Quell reported. Only one ship managed a mayday. Let it transmit, Thorne said calmly. Their command will think it's a rogue squadron gone off script. Quell narrowed his eyes. You're sure they'll think Taldeck lied? Thorne replied. He just doesn't know how. Back in the Dominion Tribunal, Thrisk Varnak received the broadcast. Another data anomaly, his war analyst stated. Taldeck's route was corrupted, Earth was never there, multiple ship losses confirmed. Varnak stared at the feed. So either Taldeck betrayed us, or Earth anticipated we'd intercept him. A long pause. Double blind, he muttered. They staged the betrayal, knowing we'd exploit it. The analyst nodded. Your next order? Assume every defector from now on is a vector of disinformation, and purge the next 5 before they speak. Shut that transmission down now? Now! I never authorized a sector recall. General Krabeck struck the edge of the command table, his scaled fist denting the alloy frame. Static streaked across the embedded heads-up display, distorting the council chamber's temperature feed. He glared across the semicircle of commanders, some flinching, others unmoved. The Council of the Drask Dominion, once a monolith of unified war doctrine, now fractured across its own strategic rot. The air smelled dry, synthetic, artificially chilled to counter the rising heat from successive emergency convenings. None of them had slept. Some refused to eat. Their ships spun in stasis, awaiting orders that contradicted each other every rotation. Across the chamber, Admiral Yernath leaned forward, neck ridged with stress-swollen veins. We received recall authorization coded to your cipher, Kravex. That message was fabricated. Or you're playing both sides. The chamber's noise peaked, rattled plates, overlapping translator nodes, bursts of dissonant language erupting in tandem. A smell like scorched fruit pulp began to permeate near the vents. Coolant leakage from the overclocked environmental regulator. On the far wall, Dominion banners scrolled through fleet statistics. Losses at Beta 6. Shutdowns across Helion. A freighter manifest rerouted 3 times by falsified navigation pings. Every number was real. Every source was untraceable. A secondary screen buzzed to life. An intercepted fleet-wide order. Fall back from Node Trinar. Redirect assault groups to coordinate at Path 7J. The room froze. Thrisk Varnak's voice, undeniable, issued the command. Except Varnak hadn't spoken since the previous cycle, and the source ping originated from a relay beacon destroyed 2 rotations ago. Kravex turned toward the projection. That's an Earth splice. Yernath squinted. It uses our old sector encoding, outdated. Only viable before the siege initiated. Exactly what they'd use if they wanted us to believe we leaked it. Behind them, another general stood abruptly. His assistant, a smaller species from a client world, handed him a data shard. Kareth scanned the contents and hissed. 2 of our tributary allies just declared operational suspension. They've evacuated their shared patrol zones and issued a conditional treaty reevaluation. Which 2? Osari and Glenth. The Glenth don't retreat unless paid to, muttered Yernath. Then someone outbid us. Gravik stared at the data shard's contents. The Glinth took our logistics reports. If Earth gets access to those, they won't fight us, they'll starve us. A message lit up across all Council terminals. Fuel rate error. Core storage at node 15 inverted. Audit initiated. Suspected internal manipulation. 3 command centers on the outer ring went black. Then the chamber lights dimmed. Not failed, but flickered. Deliberately degraded. Varnak entered. He walked through the side chamber, escorted by 2 internal security officers. His posture didn't waver. His expression said everything they needed to hear. I traced the interference back to our own archive core, he announced. Our internal records have been revised. Not externally overwritten. Revised. Orders I never issued now exist. Orders you remember following. Kareth stepped forward. You're suggesting neural scripting? No. Worse. I'm suggesting someone understands our protocols well enough to predict what we would have ordered, and forged them preemptively. Gasps followed, not from fear, but recognition. Every command they'd questioned, every dispatch that contradicted, every fleet misalignment, it had felt wrong yet plausible. The doubt now sharpened. Kravix asked the only question that mattered. How much have we done that they orchestrated without lifting a weapon? Varnak raised his hand, slow and certain. Enough to lose 4 systems without ever facing their fleet. Uraneth stepped back. Then we're not at war. No, Varnak muttered. We're a script they're reading aloud. And every step we take brings their endgame closer. Above them, an alert flashed. Unknown broadcast initiated from high chamber relay. Council override detected. All eyes turned toward the central display as a feed began playing. It showed a Dominion outpost, its banners burning under atmospheric collapse. There was no voice, just a phrase etched across the fallen emblem. When your enemies know your order better than you do, what are you leading? The council chamber descended into uproar. Kareth drew his sidearm. Where did that feed originate? Varnak didn't move. We built the feed, they sent it back. Shots rang out. Kareth aimed at Kravix, accusing him of betrayal. 2 guards tackled Kravix before he fired again. Kravix didn't flinch. He simply turned back toward the display. Lock this council down, purge all external relays, initiate internal scrubbing of fleet logs. Varnak shook his head. We have no choice. That's what they want, Varnak said. They've already done it once. Divide us further, and we fall without them firing around. The chamber doors hissed open. A comms officer entered, trembling. General, our allied command in the Veltron Quadrant just issued withdrawal. They're leaving the Dominion Treaty. Reason? They claim Earth offered them nothing. Just left a message. What message? The officer raised his wrist. Varnak read it aloud. We won't fight you. We'll let your friends eat you first. Mark the wall. They need to know we were here. Sergeant Marn Vakar's voice remained level as he approached the airlock of Station Crass 9. His gloved hand retrieved the glyph tag from his belt clip. A smooth obsidian tablet etched with 3 intersecting strokes. No text, no origin, just meaning, cleared. His unit followed with grim efficiency. None of them spoke. They had been briefed 6 hours ago. Insertion vectors uploaded to neural lattice. Movement patterns timed to bypass Dominion sensor ping rhythms. Entry vectors synced with orbital debris so they'd appear as falling rock. They were never meant to be found. The station was cold, atmosphere stale and mechanical, not failed, just uncared for, discarded. Footfalls echoed irregularly across the slanted bulkheads. Vakar didn't flinch when he stepped past the first Drask corpse, sprawled against a coolant valve. Lungs collapsed from negative pressure exposure. The neck wound was surgical, not a sign of struggle. Zone 3 is clear, muttered Rand, his recon officer, over comms. Visual? 10 bodies, no weapons drawn, no blood trails. Looks like they were planning evac and didn't get past first orders. Any sign they knew we breached? Oh. Vakar keyed into the datapad embedded in the wall's conduit. He watched as the system spooled back the last logs. 22 Dominion personnel. 2 hours of internal movement, no alarms triggered. Then, sudden dropout. As if they'd been plucked mid-action. Records weren't wiped, they were unwritten. Debbie 1-8 expected a response from command. Never got it, he said. Across the central bay, a decompression panel had been forcibly retracted. A body floated halfway through the vent shaft, torso stiff from neural lockout. On its shoulder plate, a Dominion subfleet insignia, overwritten with burn scoring. Purposeful. Marked by hand. Rand stepped next to him. They sent this crew to hold ground, no reinforcements, no oversight. Just park them here and hope they wouldn't ask questions. Vicar replied. We answered. He moved on. No alarms rang, no lights flickered, the environment stayed stable, yet unnerving. The enemy wasn't eliminated in panic. They were removed in coordination. Below them, Level 4's junction corridor showed scorched outlines near the maintenance vent. 3 more bodies, none matching Dominion identification. Non-uniformed. Possible mercenary support. Vicar reached for the embedded file tag planted beneath the access pad. It read, Observed. No engagement. Detachment dissolved under indirect neuroshock. Cause. Misaligned instruction cascade induced by audio frequency triggers. Bannock chorus on them, said Rand. Feedback distortion looped through their comm helmets. Vicar responded without turning. Log it, tag the hall. Move to next site. At Sector Delta 9, they found evidence of attempted barricade. Makeshift walls of crates and floor panels welded together in haste. Inside the perimeter were 6 Drask soldiers, all dead. None showed trauma. No wounds, said Rand, scanning one of the bodies. Vital scans indicate accelerated heartbeat. Then nothing. Total neural burnout. They sealed themselves in and still couldn't escape the triggers. That's the point. A faint chirp came through the comms. Vecker tapped his receiver. Team Echo reports Site Theta cleared. No survivors. Glyph left. Jump protocol initiated. He acknowledged without ceremony. From his pack, he removed a glyph tag. This one etched differently. Circle inside a triangle, bisected down the center. Surgical raid complete. No asset retention. He pressed it into the bulkhead, then secured it with impact gel. We're done here, he said. Jump packs on. His squad adjusted their compressed exit rigs, each designed for single-use vector launches. No tracking, no trace. Each ghost would scatter across micro-asteroid fields, untraceable among thermal scatter. Mark the core node before we leave, he added. Rand reached into the junction panel and inserted a data spike, coded to flood the station's memory with corrupted Dominion orders. When the next inspection crew accessed the log, they'd find directives for the station to self-deactivate. Earth's hand would remain invisible. A drone floated past the viewport, black, matte, silent in its movement. It paused, performed a slow rotational scan, then disappeared into the outer docking corridor. Rand watched it go. They're calling these the shadow crawlers now. No need to name what doesn't return, Vakar said. Their exit timers synced. Each trooper crouched at a different airlock, maglocks ticking down. Across the drifting hull of Station Crass 9, the Terran insignia never appeared. Not once. But at 4 separate breach points, glyphs glowed faintly. Not as light, but absence. Markers cut into the material so precisely they felt like voids. Vakar exhaled once. Then the station grew smaller behind him. The final Dominion distress ping from Crass 9 arrived 22 minutes later. Unknown cause, all contact lost, no data found, no bodies recovered. Send the transmission now. I want them watching when it breaks. Varric Thorne's voice was calm, not callous. The operator stationed beside him inside Relay Vault 7 didn't ask for clarification. The signal, already encoded with Earth's final message, had been dormant until now, buried beneath layers of Dominion protocol mimicry. It was never meant to go loud until everything else was gone. Outside the vault, the Terran communication lattice powered up, not with brightness, but with density. Lines of data cascaded into motion across embedded relay slabs, ancient conduit plates groaning beneath the reactivation sequence. This wasn't a beacon. It was an obituary. Drask Command intercepted the message within seconds. Across fleet decks, strategy rooms, and planetary garrisons, Dominion officers froze as their heads-up displays blinked, each one overridden by a ghost identifier tagged Origin, Earth, Channel, Unbound. On board the Dominion flagship Gorthon's Reach, General Thrisk Varnak stood in the bridge gallery, his hands resting against the command table. His commanders surrounded him in silence, no words exchanged, not after what they'd lost. Outposts wiped without contact, units dissolved without trace, fleets turned against themselves. The Dominion had been outwitted so methodically they could no longer trust their own maps. "Play it," he ordered. The transmission didn't begin with visuals. No face, no voice. Just a slow, deliberate construction of planetary overlays. Earth, Luna, Mars, and then hundreds of Terran colonial projections that had allegedly fallen. But each planet shown bore activity, not war, not destruction. Movement. Engineered movement. Trains operating, air recyclers whirring, drone lanes in grid motion. These worlds had never died. The overlay collapsed into one message, painted across every feed in Terran dialect and universal sigils. You didn't invade Earth. You walked into your own collapse. Then the screen flickered. And Varric Thorn appeared. Not in real time, not addressing anyone. Pre-recorded, measured, direct. "If you're hearing this," he said, "you believed we were gone. That was the first lie. You chased artifacts of surrender, echoes of a civilization that never asked for mercy. You came to destroy us. Instead, you encountered a doctrine, one we didn't publish. We embedded it." He stepped aside. Behind him, a data wall replayed Dominion fleet logs. Every ship misled, every route diverted, every command falsified. "We studied your behavior," he continued. "Not to understand your tactics, but to predict how you would unravel. And then we fed you just enough truth to quicken the unraveling." On the Gorthon's Reach, several command staff looked to Varnak. He didn't speak. His jaw tightened. "You made a mistake," Thorn said. His tone didn't rise. "You thought we'd fight to win. We didn't." He leaned forward slightly. "We fought to end you." The image faded. The last part of the feed showed no more words. Just Earth's global terminal array going dark, each light disappearing in sequence. Not an explosion. Not a shutdown. A deliberate withdrawal. Earth unplugged itself from the galactic network and left the Dominion staring at a vacuum that wasn't caused by war. On the floor of the council chamber in Raskor Prime, General Kareth's replacement dropped his datapad. "They're not replying to anything, they're not even taunting. They're..." Admiral Yerneth turned from the feed. "They didn't kill us directly. They broke the function that made us matter." Varnak walked away from the table. He passed the Dominion fleet status board. It flickered between incompleteness and distortion. No one knew which readings were accurate anymore. Half the fleets might not exist. The rest were stranded, low on fuel, caught in false orders. All trust had been routed through Earth's simulations. And Earth had just signed off. In the hallway, Varnak stopped before a scorched display panel. Someone had etched a single Terran glyph into its casing. 3 lines joined in a downward spiral. He stared at it for several seconds, then activated his private channel. To any surviving council member, he said, "We're not being attacked, we're being forgotten." No one answered. Above Earth, Relay Vault 7 powered down. Thorn stood at the doorway, watching as the last indicator lights on the repeater core extinguished. Quell joined him. "We've been dark for 23 minutes, not a single ping." Thorn nodded. "They're trying to figure out if we're bluffing. They'll assume we've retreated." "No," Thorn said. "They'll wonder what else we've already finished." A light breeze passed through the corridor, a vent cycling one final time before permanent hibernation. The vault had no need to stay active anymore. Its work was complete. Quell looked back toward the archive tower. Was it worth it? Thorn didn't respond immediately. Beely erased continents, Thorn said, his voice flat. They thought our ability to endure was a flaw. They never understood. We don't endure, we adapt. And when adaptation turns into design... He stepped away from the core console as the repeater node released its final transmission log into archive storage. It becomes execution. Quell remained still as Earth's comm grid, node by node, darkened for the last time. No failsafe. No reactive countermeasure. This wasn't withdrawal. It was absence by intent. I won't chase us again, Quell said quietly. They can't, Thorn replied. What they feared wasn't our retaliation. It was the fact that we didn't need to exist in their system to end it. From orbit, the planet below showed no marks of war, only the same clouds, same continents, same blue reflection. But no signal came from it. No beacon, no signature. Earth had turned itself into a mirror, and in that reflection, the Dominion had torn itself apart. Thorn pressed his hand against the reinforced viewport as the relay systems powered down. We didn't defend Earth, he muttered. He turned toward the core terminal and entered the final directive. One command. No password. No encryption. Terminate broadcast, archive closure. The message repeated once, across every Dominion slant frequency. Then, silence. Not failure. Finality. In a command bunker buried beneath the fractured Dominion capital, General Thrisk Varnak read the last data stream. It contained no demands, no justification. Only a single line. Humanity didn't survive your war, it replaced it. He didn't try to contact his fleet. He didn't summon his staff. He simply removed his rank insignia, set it on the console, and walked away. His legacy no longer one of conquest, but a case study in collapse.